Naruto, God-level lottery powers unleashed. Episode 51. I have to say that the 3 generations of Hokage still have some prestige. He personally went to the battlefield, which made Shinobu's offensive converge a lot, and Konoha's side was greatly encouraged and morale was high. The battlefield was at an impasse for a while. Inside the camp, the 3 leading figures of Konoha, such as Hokage, Danzo, Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya, gathered together to discuss, and the atmosphere was very tense. Tuanzong, don't you explain your previous behavior? Tsunade did not hesitate to question Danzo in person. Tuanzong was also thick-skinned. His expression was as usual, and he said lightly, Tsunade, pay attention to your tone. What's wrong with my tone? Dare to do it? Tsunade said coldly, since you are still the head of the root, you actually left your teammates behind and fled before the battle. Tsunade, it's precisely because I'm in a position of authority that I can't be angry. At that time, facing the 2 of Kazekage and Hanzo, if I really tried hard, I still had some certainty, but I couldn't take risks. You are still strong words. It is shameless. Tsunade was furious. Well, Tsunade, now is not the time to criticize who is right and who is wrong. It is most important to find Xingchen. I heard that he not only remained unharmed, but also sniped 2 of Wind Shadow's right-hand men. Tuanzong raised his eyebrows and asked, those 2 puppeteers? Yes, these 2 people are as meaningful to San Shinobu Village as they are to Konoha. Xingchen killed the 2 of them, and directly caused immeasurable heavy damage to San Ninja Village. Tuanzong fell silent, not knowing what he was measuring. This kid is still so young. He will have a great future. Jiraiya sighed. The big snake pill also smiled evilly. It is indeed an amazing guy. Xingchen is our Konoha's hope. His potential, no one can estimate. So there is no room for mistakes. We should do our best to find him now. No need. The stars will not appear for the time being. Tsunade suddenly said. Huh. The 3rd Hokage wondered, did you see him? Not really. Tsunade replied, but he sent me a message from the slug, saying that he had something to deal with and might need to disappear for a while. Disappear for a while? What do you mean? How do I know? Tsunade shrugged. The stars disappeared, but his fame spread across the battlefield from now on. San Ninja Village originally listed the stars as the first target to kill, but now, the 3 generations of Wind Shadows have repeatedly told that no matter who and how many people encounter Xingchen, as long as he is not present, he must not fall in love with the battle and directly abandon the task and escape. It's not that Wind Shadow is cowardly, it's just that because of these several encounters, too many elites have died at the hands of the stars. In Feng Ying's opinion, Xingchen was at least a quasi-shadow level powerhouse, and the upper limit was not even below him. Iwa Shinobu and Shinobu Village, although they are not as afraid of the stars as San Shinobu, they are also somewhat guarded against him. In the tripartite camp, the information of the stars reached almost every ninja. Since then, Konoha Star has become a legend that everyone fears. The battlefield is not a one-man battlefield. The fame of the stars will not affect the progress of the war, and the melee between Konoha, San Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Shinobu has intensified. In this war, the Country of Rain is undoubtedly the most disadvantaged, especially the ordinary families of the Country of Rain. In this war, they have suffered a lot. In the 33rd year of Konoha, the Second Shinobi War has lasted for a year and a half, and the stars have disappeared for a year. During the year, the battlefield of the Land of Rain has changed dramatically, with thousands of ninjas dying every day and tens of thousands of ordinary people dying. So far, the 4 sides have suffered heavy losses, and no one has taken too much advantage. Although the villages of San Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Shinobu occasionally unite, they target Konoha. But on the real battlefield, how can we completely trust each other? Therefore, after the decline of Konoha, San Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Shinobu fought separately, and the battlefield was always in a balanced state. Because once the balance is broken, it means the end of the war. In this year, after the stars, a group of excellent ninjas emerged in Konoha, among which the flag Kishuo Shigeru was the most dazzling. Although here, the Scorpion parents were not killed by Chimu Shuamao, but his strength is undoubted, and the legend of Konoha White Fang has not been broken. Of course, the reputation of Konoha White Fang has never surpassed Konoha Star. In addition to Kiki Shuwa, there are some teenagers who perform well, such as Hinata Hayashi, Uchiha Fugaku, and Senju Rope Tree, among others. However, this group of teenagers is far from being comparable to the stars. They were cultivated as seeds of Konoha, and they went into battle not to work hard, but to exercise, so the tasks they undertook were relatively safe and there were fewer conflicts. However, on the battlefield, accidents are common. On this day, a group of teenagers composed of Rope Tree, Yamanaka Takamaku, and Kiki Tsubasa are on a raid mission, targeting Shinobu's logistics department. The logistics team of Shinobu has just been transferred from Shinobu Village, and the number of people is not very large, and the only person who has some trouble is a Shangnin who is in charge of escorting. That Shangnin is dealt with by me. You quickly kill the rest of the people and burn the logistical resources. In this team, Rope Tree is almost the youngest, but he looks like a full leader. After more than a year of battlefield training, he has undoubtedly grown a lot, and he has only turned 12 years old a few months away, and he already knows how to think maturely. Rope Tree, with your strength, you can't deal with Shangnin. Chimui thought it was inappropriate. Rope Tree smiled and said, "Don't worry, I never thought of killing that Shangnin. Our goal is the resources of the logistics department. As soon as these resources are destroyed, we immediately retreat." Well, Rope Tree may not be the opponent of Shangnin, but it should be no problem to drag a Kami Shinobi. Just do it. Yamanaka Takame thought it was feasible. Then it's decided, act together. The Rope Tree seized the opportunity and rushed out. The rest also acted together and divided their own labor. Konoha's imp, are you looking for death? That Shinobu was attacked by a surprise, but he was not alarmed at all, but showed a cruel smile. The Rope Tree, which had rushed to the front, suddenly felt that something was wrong, and his expression couldn't help but change. Oops, Zhongji. Episode 52. Today's fog is very thick, and ordinary people's vision can only see things 3 or 4 meters away at most, and it is very blurry beyond that. At this time, outside the camp where Konoha's army was stationed, a hazy figure with a cloak slowly approached in the thick fog. Konoha's sentry and guards immediately became alert and issued a warning. Whoever is coming, stop immediately and be inspected. However, the people who came turned a deaf ear, still pacing slowly and walking forward. The guards were furious in their hearts. Whether the person was an enemy or not, they had the right to kill them directly if they did not listen to advice and insisted on going their own way. Kill him. With an order, countless shurikens and kunai shot towards the incoming people like dense raindrops. But the next scene shocked everyone. I saw that the man did not dodge, so he directly met Shuriken and Kuwu and walked forward. Yikes. Kumu and his shuriken seemed to hit the air, penetrating through the man. How is it possible, hell? The guard shouted in horror. Go and report to Naruto-sama. No, I'm already here. When the words fell, 2 figures jumped out from within the tent. It was the 3 generations of Hokage and Tuanzo. Both are dressed in civilian clothes and ready to fight. Your Excellency doesn't look like Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu. Who are they? Tuanzo questioned. Tuanzong, do you have bad eyes? Or do you have a bad memory, and you can't recognize who I am so quickly? The visitor took off the cloak, revealing a face that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Are you Shurchi Xingchen? Danzo and the 3 generations of Hokage were stunned at the same time. I haven't seen it for a long time, and as soon as I come back, I will greet me with this kind of battle, which really flatters me. Xingchen joked. The 3 generations of Hokage confirmed their identity and immediately flew to Xingchen's side. Where have you been for more than a year? We have been looking for you again, but there is no news at all, and I thought you. The 3 generations of Hokage looked at the stars and found that the stars had changed a lot in the past year. The change in appearance is still secondary, mainly the change in temperament and indescribable taste. What about Tsunade? Isn't she there? Star asked. Tsunade is on a mission, but counting the time, it's almost time to come back. I'll send someone to inform her. With Tsunade's personality, after hearing that Xingchen returns, I am afraid that any task in hand will be directly abandoned, and he will immediately rush back to meet Xingchen. In fact, it is exactly that. When Tsunade saw the stars, the joy and tenderness mixed with tears could not be concealed. But just for a moment, she immediately became furious. You bastard, disappeared for so long. No information passed on to me. Do you know how worried I am about you? Over the past year, Tsunade has asked the slug to find news of the stars several times. But ever since Hashichin asked the slug to bring the news to Tsunade, he was isolated from the outside world and closed himself, and the slug couldn't find him at all. Sorry to worry you. Xingchen touched his nose and said, there is indeed something very important, and didn't I come back safely? Himph. What is so mysterious that even I can't say? It's not that you can't say it, it's that it's not necessary. This matter is very important to me, but for you, it is probably boring. Xingchen set aside the topic and asked, the Rope Tree should also come to the battlefield. What about the others? He did come to the battlefield, but he was not with me, and it was always Sarutobi who assigned them tasks. When Xingchen heard this, he fell silent. What's wrong? Tsunade saw that Xingchen's expression was wrong, and he couldn't help but ask. It's nothing, I haven't seen the Rope Tree for a long time. I want to see him. After all, this is a battlefield, and there is danger at any time. In a year's time, even with the help of Bangyu, it is impossible to comprehend the 9 secrets. The reason why he came back early was because he remembered that the rope tree had a life and death disaster in the original work, and he had to come back to see it to avoid accidents. Don't underestimate the rope tree, he has grown a lot now. Although I can't compare with you, I am much stronger than my peers. This point, Xingchen does not deny. The talent of the rope tree, there is no doubt. However, at this moment, a panicked teenager rushed in and shouted, "Tsunade-sama is not well, Naoki he?" Hogyoku raised his eyebrows, while Tsunade's expression changed and asked, "What's wrong with the rope tree?" The rope tree fell into the enemy's trap, and he? When Tsunade heard this, the whole person was like being struck by lightning, and his face turned extremely pale. "What do you say? Where is the rope tree now?" The boy stammered, "In a valley near the Tianhe Bridge." Swish. Tsunade's figure disappeared directly. Xingchen glanced at the pale-faced boy and asked, "You're on the same team with Rope Tree, right?" The boy nodded. "Did Hokage know about this?" "Got it. I told Naruto-sama first, and Naruto-sama and Orochimaru-sensei passed as soon as possible." "Well, okay. It's okay. You go to rest." Saying that, the stars also swept outside. When Tsunade arrived at the scene of the incident, there was clearly a fight here. The ground was disheveled, countless scattered shurikens and kunai, and even a strong smell of gunpowder in the air. Ahead, a group of Konoha ninjas gathered around, discussing something. Without saying a word, Tsunade pushed away the crowd and rushed in. However, what came into view was a scene that made her almost faint. The 12-year-old rope tree was lying there covered in blood. His body was almost shattered by the detonation charm. His flesh and blood were blurry, and the whole person didn't even have a sound. Tsunade. Miss Tsunade, a medical ninja who was trying to perform the final treatment, saw Tsunade, stood up helplessly, and said, "Tsunade-sama, I'm sorry. I tried my best. How could it be?" Tsunade's body faltered, and she stretched out her hands tremblingly, but hesitated. Her medical ninjutsu is certainly stronger than the other party, but the situation of the rope tree is obviously not something that medical ninjutsu can solve. She did not dare to treat the rope tree for fear of achieving a more desperate outcome. "Tsunade, I've seen the situation of the rope tree. You?" The 3 generations of Hokage came from the side, but they didn't know how to comfort Tsunade for a while. The big snake pill was also in the crowd, looking into the distance, as if thinking about something. Life is so fragile and fleeting in the blink of an eye. What if this happens to you in the future? Ninjutsu is ever-changing. Is there a way to make people immortal? What are you doing? At this time, a voice that was incongruous with the sad atmosphere of the scene came, "People are not dead yet." Tsunade heard this voice and looked back, but saw Xingchen walking slowly over, without any sad look on his face. "Xingchen, what did you say?" Hogyoku walked over, glanced at the situation of the rope tree, and said to Tsunade, "Remember the birthday gift I gave to the rope tree last time? Now, it's time for it to work." Episode 53. Xingchen, what you said is true. Is the rope tree really saved? Tsunade's mind was now in chaos, completely at a loss. In the original work, Tsunade suffered from hemophobia because of the death of rope tree, and now she has preliminary symptoms. Of course, this is in the case that the rope tree cannot be saved. And the stars could make that happen? Take a trip through the Hokage time unknown prophet. If you can't stop the tragedy that is unfavorable to you, won't you cross it for nothing? Believe me, Rope Tree is also my younger brother. How can I joke about his life? Hogyoku soothed Tsunade, then walked over to the rope tree and crouched down to check on him. All the people around gathered around in amazement. The condition of the rope tree at this time. Everyone can see it, the internal organs are damaged, and it is no longer within the scope of medical ninjutsu. But the stars say that the rope tree is still saved? The 3 generations of Hokage and Orochimaru stood on the side, looking at the stars seriously, 7 doubts in their hearts, and 3 points of expectation. There have been many miracles in this kid recently. Can he still create miracles this time and bring the dead back to life? Hasn't the Yin-Yang Xianlong pill been activated yet? Xingchen inspected the body of the rope tree and found that the power of the Yin-Yang Xianlong pill was still hidden in his broken body, but it seemed to be ineffective. "Let me help you." The palm of the star palm contained a gentle power, covering the body of the rope tree, helping it activate the medicinal power of the Yin-Yang Xianlong pill. Sure enough, as if a key point is triggered, a switch is turned on. As soon as the gentle power of the stars merged into the body of the rope tree, his body immediately underwent drastic changes, and a stream of pale yellow gas overflowed from his facial features. These pale yellow gases lingered around the rope tree, gradually forming an illusory giant dragon, with a hideous face, but full of endless majestic coercion. Everyone wondered, how could such a strange condition appear on the rope tree? Why does it exude coercion that is not weaker than the shadow-level powerhouse? Tsunade squeezed his palms tightly, nervously watching the condition of the rope tree and the stars, not daring to disturb, for fear that even this last glimmer of hope would be dashed. Okay, let's just rely on himself. Xingchen stood up and stepped aside. The yellowish giant dragon wrapped around the rope tree, causing it to float slowly. The bloodstains are fading, the damaged internal organs are gradually repaired, and the wounds are healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. All the incredible phenomena have really happened in front of everyone's eyes. Oh my God, I read that right. What's going on? Miracle. What a miracle. Can you really come back to life? Shoo, don't make any noise. Everyone held their breath. Although their hearts were full of inexplicability and surprise, they did not dare to make any loud noises, for fear of disturbing the miracle in front of them. The rope tree was originally a dead person, but at this moment, under the medicinal power of the yin and yang Xinlong pill, the vitality began to recover, and it broke and stood up, and the whole person seemed to have undergone extreme sublimation. What? Suddenly, the phantom dragon that lingered around the rope tree let out a dragon groan that shook the heavens and the earth, and then rushed straight to Jiuxiao, causing the wind and clouds to change. Wild sand 100 miles, all a terrifying scene. And it was at this time that the rope tree, which was so good that his injuries were 7 or 8, suddenly opened his eyes, and a majestic momentum swept away the 8 wastes, and even the 3 generations of Hokage, who were shadow level, couldn't help but take a step back. But gradually, after the edge, the phantom dragon disappeared, the momentum converged, and the rope tree scratched its head a little dazedly, looking very innocent. What's going on? Where am I? God, it's really alive. I'm not dreaming, am I? Incredible. Rope tree. Seeing that the rope tree came to life, Tsunade couldn't help it and immediately pounced. It's great that you're okay, sister. What's wrong with you? Rope tree said inexplicably, but he hadn't seen his sister's expression for a long time. Rope tree, don't you remember, you just now? Tsunade didn't know how to remind him for a moment. Rope tree struggled to start thinking back, and finally the memory of that time came to mind again. By the way, I remember that I was on a mission just now, and I fell into an enemy trap. Rope tree said in amazement. Am I dead? I did die once just now, but it's okay now. Xingchen also came over and said with a smile. Rope tree looked at Xingchen, suddenly touched his heart, and asked, Brother Chen, is that candy you gave me? Can candy bring you back to life? Yes, it's not candy. It's definitely an elixir. Xingchen smiled and said, no matter what it is, it's good that you're okay. It's finally a false alarm. The effectiveness of yin-yang Xianlong pill is not just as simple as bringing people back to life. Maybe now that rope tree himself has not noticed that his body has changed a lot. This change is destined for his future and will not be ordinary. Fortunately in misfortune, the rope tree is unimpeded, and I am relieved. The 3 generations of Hokage and Orochimaru moved closer. The 3 generations of Hokage were delighted in their hearts and breathed a sigh of relief. The rope tree was also what he grew up watching, and he was the grandson of the original Hokage, which meant something extraordinary to him and Konoha. Moreover, when the rope tree came to the battlefield, he was personally responsible for teaching the rope tree, and this task was also assigned to the rope tree. If something happens to rope tree, he will be mainly responsible, and Tsunade will probably hate him for this. Sure, Xingchen, is it your masterpiece again? The art of bringing the dead back to life is amazing. Orochimaru stared at the stars, his eyes flashing with a strange light. How could Xingchen not know what the big snake pill was paying attention to? This person, a natural science fanatic, is much more interested in exploring the unknown than the average person. After several contacts, the big snake pill had already become interested in him. If it had been before, Xingchen might still be on the lookout for the great snake pill, just as he was wary of Tuanzong. But now it's different. This year, with the help of Bongyu, he has gained a lot. Even though he did not comprehend all the 9 secrets, even he could not estimate the extent of his strength. Episode 54. The rope tree was safe and sound, which made many people breathe a sigh of relief. For Konoha Ju and Shin, what they care more about is the return of the stars. Many people have never seen the stars before, but never have they heard his name. Long before the start of World War II, the stars were on the border of the Fire Nation, eradicating a group of troublesome shinobi. As a pioneer, he was the first to enter the battlefield of the Land of Rain, and he once led his dark team to raid the combined army of Shinobu and annihilate them all. Later, he even faced the 2 shadow-level powerhouses of the 3 generations of Wind Shadow and Hanzo Mountain Pepperfish, and after getting out of trouble safely, he actually killed Wind Shadow's 2 right-hand men. All kinds of legends are admirable and yearning. And most importantly, the person who created this legend is only 14 years old. On the battlefield, there is no time to relax. After the matter of the rope tree was resolved, everyone plunged into a tense battle situation again. 3 generations held extraordinary meetings. This kind of meeting is usually attended only by Orochimaru, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Danzo. But this time, the stars were also allowed to participate. The fact that a 14-year-old boy can participate in such an emergency meeting of decision-makers is undoubtedly the first of its kind. This meeting is a summary of the pre-World War II period, and it will also usher in a new beginning. The third generation of Hokage said with a serious expression, "It just so happens that the stars are also back now, increasing our strength." "A new beginning?" Tsunade asked. "What do you mean?" "World War II has been going on for more than a year, and during this year, Konoha, San Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Yu Shinobu have fought in all directions, all of which have suffered heavy damage and great consumption. But this does not mean that the war will end early, but it will become more and more intense. The 4 great ninja villages are not willing to be defeated, and they give everything they have to fight a battle. The truly brutal test is only now beginning." The third generation of Hokage said heavily, "Our situation in Konoha is also very unoptimistic. Although San Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Yu Shinobu fight separately, they sometimes join forces to deal with Konoha, resulting in the heaviest casualties in Konoha now." Xingchen touched his nose, and the combination of San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu and Yu Shinobu was more or less related to him. "As long as we Konoha are strong, they will jointly suppress, and the situation is difficult." Tsunade said deeply, "No matter how difficult it is, you can't surrender, and the battle that should be fought still has to be fought." The big snake pill looked indifferent. The third generation of Hokage nodded and said, "Not bad, the battle must be fought. However, our strength is weakening, and it is unwise to concentrate our forces against the enemy. So we must disperse the battlefield and carry out guerrilla warfare." Over the past year, Konoha's team has been fixed, occasionally sending 1 or 2 sub-teams on assassination missions, but there has always been a dominant base camp. However, now that the situation has changed, Shinobu, Iwa Shinobu, and Yushin may unite at any time. If Konoha keeps gathering together, it is very likely that it will be swept away. However, the ranks are scattered in all directions and guerrilla warfare is carried out, and the enemy advances and we retreat, which is much more flexible. Disperse the battlefield? When Tsunade heard this, he subconsciously glanced at the stars. In other words, are we going to fight separately in the future? Jiraiya asked. The third generation of Hokage nodded again. "I discussed with Tuanzo, and the battlefield will be divided into 4 major battlefields in the east, west, south, and north of the Land of Rain. We in Konoha divided into 4 teams and scattered all parties. I'll go with the stars, east, west, north, and south." Tsunade immediately suggested, and then asked Hoshido, "Xingchen, what do you think?" "I don't care, but Naruto-sama doesn't seem to agree." Xingchen said. "Why?" Tsunade looked at the 3 generations. "Tsunade, don't be capricious." The third generation said with a straight face, "Although you and Xingchen have a good relationship, you and the 3 of you and Orochimaru and Jiraiya are the best combination, and the cooperation is more tacit. Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya have been partners since childhood, and they have experienced too many missions and dangers together, and they know each other very well. And Tsunade and Xingchen, although they have a good relationship, but fighting together, they may not be able to cooperate well. After all, the strength of the stars, Tsunade does not understand." All right. Even though Tsunade was a little reluctant, he knew that it was not the time to be willful. "Well, Tsunade, the 3 of you lead a team in the east. Tuanzang's team is in the south. Xingchen led a team to the north, and the rest is myself." "What? Xingchen leads a team alone?" Tsunade interrupted Sandai's words, looking surprised. The 3 generations and Tuanzo are both shadow level, and she and the big snake pill and Zilai can also be worth a shadow level. "But the stars?" The third generation said calmly. "Of course, Xingchen has already proved that he has this ability, doesn't he?" Tsunade was slightly stunned, only to realize that it was he who realized it later. In everyone's impression, the stars have long been comparable to shadow-level existences. "I don't have any opinions, but Yuna and the others should follow me, right?" Xingchen asked. Although Yuna's combat effectiveness is not very strong, after all, they are familiar with each other, and Xingchen trusts them very much. Naturally, in addition to your original 7th detachment, there will be several Shangnin as your attendants. In the original, Xingchen was only a dark captain, and now, Hokage actually sent several Kamishinobu as his attendants. Xingchen's current status is undoubtedly above the 3 shinobi. After saying goodbye to Tsunade Naoki, Hashichin gathered his team and got ready to set off towards the northern battlefield of the Land of Rain. The team he led, including Yuna's people, totaled 42 people, including 6 upper shinobi, 12 middle shinobi, and 24 lower shinobi. Compared to the other 3 teams, he is only the least. But Xingchen didn't mind. For him, there were fewer people, but it was more at ease. After arriving in the north, Xingchen once again scattered the team, and a small detachment of 5 or 6 people sneaked into all directions, waiting for the opportunity. In this northern land, fierce fighting is taking place between U Ninja Village and IWA Ninja Village, and there are fighting everywhere, as well as ruins. But surprisingly, after the team of the stars entered, the two sides immediately stopped fighting, causing the northern land to usher in a long-lost calm. It seems that they are ready to join forces against us. Xingchen thought about it a little, and he knew what the U Ninja Village and IWA Shinobi Village were paying attention to. Episode 55. Is this the pupil power of the Eye of Reincarnation? Xingchen could feel the inexplicable power that invaded invisibly, but he was a little disappointed. But that's all? Your age is too young after all. When Uzumaki Nagato loses control, the power of the Eye of Reincarnation will explode. However, his awakening of the Eye of Reincarnation is too short and too young. Even if it breaks out, this power is like a drop in the bucket for the stars at this time. Uzumaki Nagato looked in shock at the stars that were illuminated by his pupils, but seemed to be unaffected in the slightest, and froze for a while. How terrifying his eyes are. It has been verified before. In just a moment, just a glimpse, 3 Naka shinobi died on the spot, and one also became an idiot. He was terrified of this power, afraid that he would become an indiscriminate monster. But in order to protect his partners, he had to use this power. As long as he can protect Konan, Yahiko, he will not hesitate to become a monster. But now he was desperate. The boy in front of him was obviously not much older than them, but unlike ordinary ninjas, he was not afraid of his eyes at all. What? The pattern of those eyes is very special, but it's not remarkable. I really don't know what happened to your subordinates. Captain Osaka saw that the stars were okay, and at the same time he breathed a sigh of relief, but he didn't think so. The 6th captain hummed, "That's Lord Xingchen. I promise that if that little ghost just now is aimed at you, you will definitely become an idiot. Do you want to try it?" Osaka was about to say, "Try it," but then retracted his feet and said seriously, "Lord Hogyoku is here. Be serious. Don't joke." The 6th captain knew that he was somewhat weak in his heart, but he did not dismantle his platform, but asked Xingchen, "Sir, these 3 little ghosts are very strange, especially this little ghost with evil eyes. I suggest that they be shot to prevent future problems. On the battlefield, mercy to the enemy is cruelty to oneself. These 3 are orphans of the Rain Ninja Village, who are oppressed by the Konoha Ninja today, and may have a revenge on Konoha in the future. After all, this little ghost's eyes are unusual, almost comparable to Uchiha's chakra eyes." When Uzumaki Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko heard this, they all shrunk together in fright, shivering, and their hearts were full of despair and hatred. Xingchen looked indifferent and glanced at the 6th captain. "Very good suggestion." The 6th captain was overjoyed when he heard this. "Sir, then let me do it." "What's your name?" Xingchen asked coldly. "Just call me Sanyuan." "Sanyuan?" Xingchen said lightly, "Your 6th squad does not exist anymore. Merge you into the 9th squad. From now on, Osaka will be your captain and follow his instructions." "Huh." Sanyuan froze. It's good that all the people under him are dead, but he is one of the 6 upper ninja under Xingchen. How can he say that he can also go to other teams to mix with the captain? Why should he be merged into the 9th squad? Or is he just an ordinary member? He and Osaka have always been equals, and now he is a generation shorter for no reason, which makes him how to meet people in the future. How? Do you have an opinion? Sir, this? Sanyuan was a little unwilling. Osaka shinobi next to him couldn't help but laugh, then pulled Sanyuan over and said in a low voice, "Stupid, you still don't understand. Don't make the adults angry at this time. You all have dry food on you. Take out half of it." "Yes, yes, yes." Sanyuan Hui was the first to react, and took out all the dry food things on his body and handed them to Xingchen. Osaka and all the members of the 9th squad also took out their food, and Xingchen said that he wanted half, and they almost gave it all. Hashichin gathered the food together and walked over to Nagato, Uzumaki, Konan, and Yahiko. "I said, I won't hurt you. As for the previous incident, I am sorry that this food is used as compensation, and I see that you have not eaten for many days." When Xingchen stuffed the food over, the 3 of them were all stunned, and seemed to be a little unbelievable. "These, all to us? Because of the war, they are displaced and have no fixed place to live, and they have to go out every day to find food, and they can hardly find it. Even if you are lucky enough to find food, it is mostly dirty, abandoned food. Don't worry." Xingchen smiled slightly. Perhaps because Xingchen is not old, his smile, in the eyes of Nagato and Xiaonan, is full of affinity. The sudden warmth and despair caught them off guard, and it also made them remember it even more. "Thank you." Yahiko reached out and took the food. "Now you know why the adult demoted you?" Osaka gloated at Sanjin and said, The adult is only 14 years old, and it is inevitable that he will be sympathetic to the three of them, so pay attention to what he says in the future. Big brother, you are such a good person, different from the ninjas we have seen. Xiao Nan's eyes sparkled and stared at the stars. At this moment, although Xiao Nan's small face was dirty, it was difficult to hide her delicate face. Xingchen touched her head with a smile and said, "Sometimes, we can't help ourselves. War is not for one side to decide, and if we do not fight this battle, our family village will be overrun by the enemy." Xiao Nan nodded understandingly, and then took out a flower folded in paper and handed it to the stars. Xingchen was slightly stunned. At this time, Xiao Nan was undoubtedly very kind. In the original work, although the family was broken and the village was invaded, when he met Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, he also smiled and handed over a paper origami. Xingchen took the paper origami and praised, "Very beautiful, skillful Xiao Nan." Xiao Nan was very happy in his heart, but soon asked suspiciously, "Big brother, how do you know that my name is Xiao Nan? I know not only that your name is Conan, but I also know that his name is Nagato Uzumaki, and his name is Yahiko." The stars put the names of the three people together. On the side, Osaka and Sanyuan looked at each other, both surprised. Do adults know these three imps? Episode 56. Xingchen and Xiaonan chatted for a while, and his smile was very infectious, making the three of them completely let down their guard. But at this moment, Yuna suddenly rushed over and hurriedly said, "Captain, it's not good. IWA Shinobu and you Shinobu have set out, and they seem to be searching for us in a big way." Huh? Xingchen frowned. How could it be so sudden? "Captain, IWA Shinobu and you Shinobu combined. The number is more than 3 times that of us. I'm afraid we will suffer a lot in the fight," Yuna said cryptically, signaling the stars to step back slightly. "After all, our own side is inferior. We can only fight guerrilla warfare, and when the opposite side is tough, our side can only retreat. Moreover, IWA Shinobu and you Shinobu disappeared for a long time, presumably planning how to deal with them, and at the same time, I am afraid that they have also investigated their manpower clearly. Nowadays, it is equal to the enemy being bright and dark, and the gap in numbers is so large, it will definitely suffer a loss in the fight. No need to retreat, you squads can lurk according to the original plan." "I'm afraid there is no way to lurk. IWA Shinobu endured so much eyeliner. It is easy to find us. In case any squad runs into them alone, the whole army will definitely be destroyed. Don't worry, you first let all the detachment leaders gather, and we will have a small meeting first." The stars seemed to have a plan. Yuna saw that the stars were confident, so she didn't say more. What the stars are sure of, there is no big problem. "Big brother, are you going to fight?" Xiao Nan looked at the stars worriedly. "Well, now that there is war everywhere, I have to run around a lot, and I can't take you with me, so find a safe place to hide." When Xiao Nan heard this, he was immediately frustrated. "Yahiko, Nagato, you two are men. No matter what happens, remember to protect Conan." "Well, I will." Both nodded solemnly. Yahiko is not a greedy person. The stars have given them enough food to eat for a month, and they should not stay as a burden. "Big brother, goodbye. I hope to have the opportunity to see you again in the future." When they separated, Xiao Nan was reluctant. Looking at the three people going away, Xingchen sighed inexplicably. "Captain, in fact, even if you bring the three of them, it won't be much of an obstacle for you, right?" Yuna could see the conflicted heart of the stars. "It's not hard to protect the three of them, but I don't know if I should do it or not," Xingchen said. After thinking about it, "Let them go their own way, and soon they will meet another person, and that person will teach them." Huh? Yuna was stunned when she heard this. "Captain, you said that soon. You know that? Could it be that the captain did not know the prophet?" Xingchen smiled casually. "Okay, it's just a small episode. Get ready for the next battle." Summoned by the stars, the captains of the 10 squads gathered together for a simple meeting. In just 10 minutes, the meeting was over, and the 10 captains returned to their respective teams, like fish into the sea, birds into the jungle, and disappeared without a trace. In the combined army of IWA Shinobu and U Shinobu, there was also a meeting, and all the leaders were present. As far as the intelligence knows, the leader of Konoha this time is Shi Xingchen, who has disappeared for a year. Shi Xingchen? It is said that this guy is only 14 years old, but he can easily kill the elite Sharingan, and it is very likely that he is a quasi-shadow level powerhouse. Konoha is a demon genius. If you don't get rid of it, it will be difficult to sleep. Compared to us, Shinobu hates Shi Xingchen even more, so I have already communicated with the 3rd generation of Mechazekage, and he said that he will rush over when he finishes dealing with the matter over there. Then shall we wait until the Wind Shadow comes? How is it possible? The war on his side will not be solved for a while. Do we keep waiting? Moreover, our number is 3 times that of Shi Xingchen, and it is us who spend time with him. Yes, we don't have many food reserves, plus we have a lot of people, The longer the time drags on, the worse it will be for us. We are mostly good, but none of us can face Shi Xingchen head-on. I'm afraid that if we fight, we may not be able to take advantage. A commander who can sweep through enemy forces will have a great impact on military morale and morale. Marching and fighting is not a performance of personal ability, but also a strategy. As far as the intelligence knows, Shi Xingchen does not seem to dare to confront us head-on, so he scattered all his subordinates. That's right, we can break each of them. Each break. Yes, Shi Xingchen divided the team into 10 squads, then we will also divide the team into 10 squads, and then carry out a raid. Then if you are unlucky and bump into Shi Xingchen, wouldn't it be looking for death? It takes a little bit of sacrifice. A few days after the battlefield was immersed again, on this day, Yuna's first squad was ambushed. You guys are really careless. You actually caught a loophole by us. Compared to Yuna's 6-man team, the enemy numbered more than 2 dozen, and 3 of them were shinobi. Both quantity and quality crush Yuna's side. Yes? Faced with this kind of battle, Yuna did not panic at all, but sneered, "I think you are looking for your own death, right? Shout." As his words fell, an extremely fast black shadow passed by. Whoosh. In an instant, I saw that the 3 upper ninja were all covering their hearts in horror, and the blood could not stop gushing out. Because the speed was too fast, even if the heart was broken, the 3 did not lose their breath for a while. "You are Konoha Star?" The 3 looked in horror at the gray-clothed boy who had already stood in front of them at some point. It was as terrifying as rumored. Hee, it's so powerful, even if we are unlucky, but you also have to pay a heavy price. After speaking, the 3 of them broke their breath at the same time and fell into a pool of blood. "Yuna, the rest will be left to you," Xingchen said lightly. "No problem." 3 upper shinobi died, and no matter how many of the rest of the middle shinobi were killed, they could only be slaughtered. Around the same time, Team 9 was ambushed, and Osaka and Sanjin were in the same situation as Yuna, besieged by more than 3 times as many ninjas. It seems that we are lucky. One of the enemy elite sneered. "The Iron Wolf seems to have met Shi Xingchen and has already died." Osaka mocked. "Your teammate is still so happy to die. Is there any humanity?" "Of course I have to be happy, because it means that Shi Xingchen is not here with you, and all of you here will die and be buried for the Iron Wolf." The elite Shangnan said, "And in addition to your squad and the squad protected by Shi Xingchen, there are 8 squads, and we will annihilate together." "So you made this calculation?" Sanyuan asked. "1 team. In exchange for our 9 teams?" "That's right. Meeting Shi Xingchen is considered bad luck. However, Shi Xingchen is not a god. He can't always appear in 10 teams at the same time, right?" However, at this moment, an indifferent voice sounded, like a song of death. "I am indeed not a god, but why is it difficult to appear in 10 teams at the same time?" Episode 57. You. The elite shinobi and the other 20 or so ninjas all turned back in horror and looked at the gray-clothed boy who was slowly walking over. "Didn't you kill the Iron Wolf over there? How did you appear here?" They make secret contacts, which only take a split second to complete. So he learned that the stars appeared on the side of the Iron Wolf just a few breaths ago. A few breaths later, kill the Iron Wolf from there, and then appear here across several miles. How can it be? Although the boy in front of him was only 14 years old, everyone saw him as if they saw death coming, and they could not have any fighting intent. There was nothing else to think about but horror and retreat. Don't panic. This is definitely just a doppelganger. Don't be deceived by him. The elite upper shinobi is relatively calm. Xingchen killed the Iron Wolf group over there, and it must be the real thing. Then the one in front of you is most likely just a doppelganger to scare them. When the ninjas heard this, they felt reasonable, and they were a lot more determined in their hearts. Doppelganger? However, Xingchen smiled contemptuously, and the figure instantly disappeared from the place. Wow, that elite Shangren only saw a brilliant light and shadow, and then he felt a cold heart, and the pain of the cone reflected the nerves. Blood sprayed out, and the elite couldn't believe it. Why? Before he could finish his words, he fell to the ground in horror. First, Chieftain. The remaining ninja were immediately left with only despair. Where this is the doppelganger, it is clearly the ontology. But even the body is too terrifying, right? The leader of the elite upper ninja strength was actually seconded without reacting, not to mention that the enemy ninja was shocked. Even Osaka and Sanjin were secretly shocked. They were also the first time to see Xingchen make a move, and they thought that the legend would be somewhat exaggerated, but now that they saw it with their own eyes, they knew that he was more terrifying than the rumors. At the same time, the remaining 8 detachments under Xingchen were attacked. However, the same scene was played out in various detachments. At the same time, the enemy received the signal of the Iron Wolf before death, and they all thought that they were lucky and did not meet the stars. But in the end, they were all stunned and buried in the hands of the stars. After IWA Shinobu and U Shinobu united, they established a secret base. There were many of them, and although they divided 10 troops to target the stars, they were not considered the whole army dispatched, and the real masterminds of both Yen Shinobu and Yu Shinobu did not make a move. The status of these two people, just like the status of the stars in Konoha, belongs to the main person in charge of this battlefield. Their strength is naturally very strong, and almost all of them are the strongest people under the shadow level. However, they are not sure that they can deal with the stars, so they dare not make a rash move. In case of bad luck and they encounter the stars, they will lose a lot. Moreover, they plan to sacrifice one detachment and replace the 9 detachments of Xingchen, and with or without their participation, they should all be stable. Well, there is a signal. It is from the Iron Wolf. The leader of the Rain Ninja said, "It seems that I was unlucky," and the Iron Wolf ran into Shichi Xingchen. The Iron Wolf is the upper ninja of the Rain Ninja, and when it meets the stars, it will probably be completely destroyed. At this time, the leader of the Sand Ninja was a little gloating, although they temporarily united and targeted Shichi Xingchen, but after all, they were also opponents. Not long ago, they fought to the death, and after defeating Shichi Xingchen, they may have to fight again. But he didn't wait long to be proud, and suddenly received a new number, and his expression suddenly changed. "How is it possible, this?" The leader of the Rain Ninja asked. "What's wrong?" The second group under me also ran into Shichi Xingchen. What's going on?" Tick tick. After a few seconds, suddenly 8 red signals sounded at the same time. It was their agreement. As long as this red signal came over, it meant that they had encountered Shichi Xingchen. However, all 10 groups lit up with red signals. "What's going on?" "Sir, this battle has finally seen your bravery, and I admire it. Yes, we almost didn't contribute much, and we actually completely destroyed Yu Shinobu and IWA Shinobu 3 or 4 times more than our troops. Originally, I thought that the combination of Yu Shinobu and IWA Shinobu would be very unfavorable to us. Now it seems that in front of adults, it is not worth mentioning at all. Those guys also don't want to think that if they hadn't deliberately led them to the bait, they would have learned the hiding place of our 10 squad so easily. So naive. They are all adults who are powerful, and they actually use the second-generation Hokage's Flying Thunder God technique in such a state, and the enemy still thinks that the adults are doppelgangers. After this battle, both Yu Shinobu and IWA Shinobu will be greatly damaged and morale greatly reduced, and we Konoha finally raised our eyebrows and exhaled once. Because during this year, as long as Konoha has a slight tendency to raise its head, Yu Shinobu, IWA Shinobu, and Sand Shinobu will unite, causing them to be at a disadvantage all the time and very angry. This battle, hundreds of ninjas of Yu Shinobu and IWA Shinobu were annihilated, and more than a dozen of them were in the upper shinobi, and their own side was unharmed, which was perfect. Beautiful battle. Hearing the news from the northern battlefield, the 3 generations of Hokage couldn't help but show joy. This kid, really worthy of the task, brought me good news so soon. However, at the headquarters of IWA Shinobu and Yu Shinobu, the reaction was diametrically opposite. "Damn sure Xingchen, I can't spare you. What are those people for? 3 times the strength, can't take the other party alone. Lord Taishang, that Shichi Xingchen is really too strong. We underestimated him too much before. It's not unreasonable for Wind Shadow to be so jealous of him." The 3rd generation of Tokage Inoki looked deep, pondered for a long time, and said, "A 14-year-old little ghost? Can he really go against the sky? Lord Tsuchikage, what should we do now? Do we still need to send someone over the northern battlefield? What are you sending for? Sending to death? Let all the few people who are still alive come back." Inoki snorted coldly. Since Konoha has a tendency to raise his head again, then he can't help but be mean. "Tsuchikage-sama means, help me make an appointment with Wind Shadow and the leader of the Yunin village, Hanzo of the Pepper Fish." The attendant was slightly startled. To deal with a Shichi Xingchen, did it need 3 shadow-level powerhouses to join forces? Even Hokage never wanted to be treated like this. Episode 58. Orochimaru, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Danzo received the message from Hokage and immediately rushed back. "Tsuruta-bai-sensei, we have just left. Why did you suddenly summon us back?" Tsunade asked. They rushed to the battlefields of all sides, less than a month ago, and were actively preparing for future battles, but suddenly received a message from the 3 generations of Hokage, telling them to rush back. "Maybe you don't know yet, there is a situation in the northern battlefield where the stars are located, and I am also an emergency move." "Ah, are the stars in danger?" Tsunade immediately tensed up. Not really, he should be safe for the time being. The 3rd generation of Hokage laughed. Not only that, but he also annihilated the IWA Shinobu troops in the northern battlefield without spending a single soldier, and almost occupied that area. In less than a month, Annihilate the combat power of 2 villages? The Big Snake Pill and Zilai also showed shock. This efficiency was too terrifying. The strength of the northern battlefield is the weakest, less than 1/3 of any of our 3 sides. After all, Shi Xingchen is led by 1 person, and Hokage took this into account, so he sent him to the north, focusing on tempering him. Compared with the shock of everyone, Tuanzong looked very indifferent and said disapprovingly, "If the enemy misestimates the strength of Shi Xingchen and falls into the trap, it is not surprising that this effect can be achieved." The 3rd generation of Hokage looked displeased. Tuanzong, the strength of the northern battlefield is the weakest, but the troops we sent to Shi Xingchen are also the least. He can fight such a beautiful battle. The merit is undeniable. I'm not denying Shi Xingchen's achievements. I just think you're making too much of a fuss. Is it to summon all 4 of us back from the battlefield to celebrate Shi Xingchen's achievements? Although the 3 of the Great Snake Pill felt that Tuanzong intended to target the stars, his words still made some sense. Even though the stars were indispensable, there was no need to transfer all of them back from the battlefield, right? Sarutobi-sensei, there should be other reasons, right? Of course. The 3rd generation of Hokage's expression became serious. Do you think that after the stars finish this battle, the enemy can still leisurely let him continue to gallop? Tsunade was startled. You mean? After annihilating the troops of Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu, Xingchen and his group almost dominated the entire northern battlefield, and no ninja from his village dared to rise to the top. Captain, what should we do next? Although the battle situation was ostensibly resolved, Yuna always felt uneasy. Do you want to go to other battlefields to support? No. If other battlefields need support, Hokage will naturally send a message. We can just wait for the news. But, is it really okay if we just stay here? Yuna paused. I mean, Iwa Shinobu and Shinobu can't give up, and San Shinobu who has always been hostile to us. Of course, they will definitely send someone again. But, is it necessary to worry about this? When the enemy comes, just fight. This is the battlefield, and we are here to fight. Yuna was slightly startled, but she was speechless. Her fear was that if the enemy came prepared, they would suffer. But Xingchen was not worried about this at all, as if no matter who came, no matter how many people came, he was not afraid at all. It's worthy of being a captain. Just this kind of courage, few people in the ninja world can compare. Yuna thought to herself, since she knew the stars, she didn't know how many miracles she had seen from this teenager. Not only that, the confident star has a unique, infectious power. The 7th detachment of the Dark Department was not very convinced by the stars at first, but now, even if they die for the stars, they will probably not hesitate, right? Because for them, the stars have long become a faith, like the Hokage. Xingchen asked his men to rest in the area of the northern battlefield, and at the same time carefully prepared that the 3 shinobi village would send ninjas again. However, in a short period of time, the northern battlefield has completely entered a period of calm, and there are no more conquests. This is undoubtedly a good thing for the civilians of the Land of Rain, and many innocent people have finally got a breather. However, the good times did not last long, and the defeated enemy army soon overwhelmed the situation again. My lord, I found the trace of Shinobu. Sir, I found the trace of Iwa Shinobu. My lord, I have found the traces of Shinobu and are pressing on us. This time, the coming of the 3 major ninja villages was too ferocious, and the people under Xingchen did not dare to resist hard, and they were retreated one after another. In the end, everyone huddled together, surrounded by the 3 major ninja villages, and there was no way to escape. However, this is expected by the stars. The 3 major ninja villages want to take revenge, and letting their subordinates fight hard is tantamount to hitting a stone with a pebble. Shi Xingchen, your end has arrived. The enemy camp shouted angrily, Today, I see how arrogant you are. That's the 3rd generation of Wind Shadow. He actually did it himself? The shadow of a village is a very awe-inspiring existence for any ninja. Even if it is an enemy, Konoha ninjas still have an inexplicable fear of Kazekage. You are Shi Xingchen, and you really are a hero out of a young man. On the Iwa Shinobu side, a dwarf man levitated in the air, his eyes sharp, looking directly at the stars. God, that's tying. He actually came, joining forces with Wind Shadow. Yuna thought that if the enemy sent out again this time, the lineup would be extraordinary, but she didn't expect the 2 shadow levels to move at the same time. Wrong. Since the shadows of Iwa Shinobu and San Shinobu have personally dispatched, could it be that Shinobu is also looking towards the side of Shinobu, patrolling for a long time? Yuna's eyelids couldn't help but jump. The ninja who stood in the crowd of rain ninjas, wearing a gas mask with a different shape and a very eye-catching appearance, wasn't it? Shi Xingchen, we met again. Last time you got away with it. This time I see how you can trick again. Hanzo sneered. Last time, because he was defenseless, he let the stars cast the flying thunder god and fled, and Hanzo was not very comfortable in his heart. Now, they have gathered 3 shadow-level powerhouses here, and they have also studied the flying thunder god technique of the stars and have taken precautions. Moreover, even if he really couldn't stop Xingchen from escaping, then the gang under him would definitely die. As long as Xingchen abandons his teammates and flees without a fight, then his reputation will be ruined, and the purpose of their trip can also be achieved. Episode 59. Sometimes, a person's strength is secondary, mainly because the person has accomplished some glorious deeds and brought strong encouragement to his own side. Just like the stars now, are the 3 major ninja villages really afraid of the personal strength of the stars? No. Although the strength of the stars is also one of them, the most important thing is that the series of amazing achievements of the stars has greatly encouraged Konoha's military heart. Now in the Konoha army, as long as the stars are mentioned, the morale will be greatly increased, and everyone will be like a chicken blood. That's the scariest impact. Therefore, even if you can't kill the stars today, you must thwart its sharp energy and let the legend be shattered. Oh, are you just thinking about how I will escape? Xingchen faced the 3 shadows, without fear, and said lightly, "Didn't you think I would stay and defeat you?" Wind Shadow, Earth Shadow, and Pepperfish Hanzo were stunned at the same time. Beat them? There must be a limit to this kid's arrogance, right? Not to mention that they are close to each other. Even the people they brought over are all elite troops. In other words, the power they want to target now against the stars is equivalent to the power of more than half of the 3 major ninja villages. In this kind of battle, Xingchen actually dared to say that he defeated them? Little ghost, I haven't seen you for a year, and you've become ambitious. Hanzo sneered, I hope you don't just brag about it. The last time you and Danzo met me in Kazakage, you had to run away. Today, plus a Earth Shadow. What do you take to fight? Shibetsu should be impressed for 3 days, not to mention that he has not seen it for a year. Xingchen chuckled, Hanzo, you can't keep up with the times anymore. Yes? Hanzo smiled angrily. Then how about letting me learn your tricks? Xingchen raised his eyebrows. You mean, single out with me? That's right. If you can defeat me, my ninja village will retire and not participate in this matter. Hanzo, you? When Wind Shadow heard this, his expression was cold. His purpose today is to crush the stars in one fell swoop. Whether he is mean, bullying, or bullying, no matter what means he uses, no matter what reputation he falls, he doesn't care. Because the threat of the stars is too great for him. Wind Shadow, in fact, I don't have much hatred with him. Besides, if I fight him in a decisive battle, do you think I will lose? If I win, I will directly help you kill him. Why not? Hanzo, the pepperfish in this period, represents the combat power of the peak of the ninja world, so he is extremely proud. In the original work, he fought fiercely against Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya alone, and he still managed to maneuver with ease, and even completely abused the 3. But because the 3 of them survived many rounds on his hands without being killed, Hanzo praised them 2 times and gave them the title of Konoha 3 Shinobi. Since then, the 3 have become ninja legends. It can be imagined that Hanzo's strength during World War II is the undeniable peak of the ninja world. At this time, Hanzo also had something in his heart. He and Xingchen really don't have much hatred. If he could kill the stars under the competition, he would definitely kill him directly. But if he loses to Xingchen, or can't help Xingchen, it means that this person is no longer provoked by ninja village. So why should he have a grudge with him? Suchikage, what do you think? Kazakage also did not dare to be too tough on Hanzo, so he could only turn to Suchikage. Inoki floated in the air, groaned slightly, and then said, since Mr. Hanzo is interested, you might as well let him give it a try. All right. Wind Shadow is helpless. Hanzo, are you sure you want to fight me alone? Xingchen felt that Hanzo's brain was funny, such a good situation. Actually have to single him out? Sure, Xingchen, I have heard a lot of legends about you during this time, which makes me really curious. Today, I finally have the opportunity to meet you in person. Hanzo seemed to be looking forward to it. Captain, you have to be careful. The strength of Hanzo is not under Naruto-sama. Yuna knew that it was useless to persuade Xingchen and could only remind her. I know in my heart, you stand back. Xingchen waved his hand. The people around all retreated to the side, leaving space for the 2 of them to go one-on-one. So, it begins, life and death, Hanzo said, and then raised it with one hand, and a giant scythe appeared in his hand. Giant blade flash. With a flash of light, Hanzo suddenly disappeared from the spot. At almost the same time, he had already appeared above the head of the stars, and the giant scythe was harvested down. So fast. Yuna's expression changed. The shadow level is indeed the shadow level, and it is not at all comparable to ordinary ninjas. This action alone is enough to kill the vast majority of Shangnan. The two of Tsuchikage and Kazekage watched the battle closely, and since they couldn't stop it and couldn't participate in this battle, they would take a good look. Knowing themselves and knowing each other, what they want to analyze is not only the strength of the stars, but also the strength of Hanzo of the pepperfish. Clang! The pepperfish Hanzo scythe slashed down, but it split into the air in an instant and slammed into the ground. It's not slow. I don't know when the stars on the side flashed in approval. Your reaction is not bad. Hanzo also approved, and then took the scythe in hand and rushed towards the stars. After a temptation, he already knew that Xingchen was indeed qualified to make a move with him, and most of the rumors he heard during this time were not exaggerated. What a hero out of a teenager. Be careful. As long as you show a slight flaw, it will make you fatal. The half-hiding method of the pepperfish is extremely fast, wielding the scythe and dancing in the air, which actually sets off a series of cold winds. Fortunately, the star body is extraordinary, clever as a spirit snake, and can avoid attacks every time. Yuna, the captain seems to be very passive. What should I do? Osaka looked anxious. The fact that Xingchen can stalemate with Tuanzong is already extraordinary. But if such a stalemate continues, Xingchen will not find a chance to counterattack, and sooner or later it will lose. Don't worry, you can doubt anything, but don't doubt the captain's confidence. Since he dared to accept this competition, he would never lose. Yuna affirmed. On the field, the pepperfish Hanzo killing move is fierce, and the stars have been dodging, seemingly unable to deal with it head-on. Sure, Xingchen, you shouldn't only have this level, right? Hanzo was a little impatient. Show your true skills. Well, then as you wish. Xingchen took a step back and ascended to the sky with one hand. Sleeve white snow. In the sky, suddenly the ice flowers fell, and a crystal clear and extremely beautiful ice blade appeared in the hands of the stars. At your request, the sword light flashes. As the stars drank softly, he suddenly turned into a brilliant white light. Shout! The brilliance flashed, and when Hanzo didn't have time to defend, it streaked against his cheek. Tick! The skin was cut, and a drop of scarlet blood dripped to the ground. Episode 60. This scene surprised everyone. The reversal is too fast. The stars who seemed to be able to parry just now, in the blink of an eye, actually injured Hanzo, and it seemed to imitate Hanzo's tricks. Hanzo was also stunned for a moment, and reached out to touch the wound on his cheek. Although this wound is very shallow, it is not a wound at all for a ninja, but for his pepperfish Hanzo, it is like a great shame. Hanzo, you should be glad I'm not you. If I were like you, who likes to mix poison on the blade, I am afraid you will lose now. Hmph, good boy. When I really underestimate you, I can actually hurt me. Xingchen held his sleeve white snow, and an invisible freezing aura lingered around his body, and said lightly, Did you only realize it now? From the time you said you wanted to fight with me alone, you were underestimating me. So, you think you're going to win? Hanzo said with a smile. If I can't win you, I won't agree to fight you. Hey, it's really not ordinary arrogance. In front of my pepperfish Hanzo, no one dares to say such a thing yet. Hanzo smiled angrily, thinking that he had crossed the ninja world and left a prestige. But now he was actually looked down upon by a little ghost. It seems that if you don't come out with some real skills, not only will you not be able to sanction you today, but the prestige of this world will be destroyed in your hands. Hanzo didn't want to say more, and suddenly held his breath, as if he was finally going to take this battle seriously. But I saw that Hanzo hid the scythe in his hand and performed ninjutsu instead. Seal your hands and press them to the ground. Fire escape explosion array. Suddenly, the ground where the star was located suddenly sagged, trapping it, and countless detonation charms appeared, clinging tightly to the star's feet. This trick can be described as one of Hanzo's tricks. In the original book, Hanzo used this move to injure Tsunade, and later also broke Nagato's legs, leaving Nagato without power. Powerful ninjutsu. Boom. As the detonating flame burst open, a series of explosions occurred around the stars, and smoke and dust filled the sky. Captain, Lord. Yuna's side suddenly felt half cold. Wind Shadow and Earth Shadow looked at each other, and they both breathed a sigh of relief. This guy, if he gets hit by this trick, no matter how powerful he is, he will be seriously injured, right? Obviously, Wind Shadow and Earth Shadow are well aware of the power of the flame array. This is not something you can hide if you want to. Sure, Xingchen, you should still be alive, right? Hanzo stared at the dust and smoke and asked calmly. However, what answered him was only a sudden drop of frosty coldness. Huh. Hanzo's expression sank. This sudden change in weather was very unusual, and it actually made him feel a sense of slaughter. The dust and smoke cleared, and the ground had been blown out of a large crater by the detonation flame array. However, Xingchen stood there unharmed. Not even his clothes and hair were messy. How is it possible? Hanzo's expression changed. He could be sure that Xingchen hadn't dodged just now, and had hit his own detonation flame array head-on. How could there be nothing at all now? If it's turn-based, it's up to me now, right? Xingchen said, raising one hand high. Boom. In the cold wind, there was a frost condensation, mixed with the sound of cutting. In an instant, a terrifying chakra condensed in his palm, like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. Ice Dome Shuriken, frost and snow, integrated into the spiral pellet, produced both morphological changes and property changes. A shuriken-like spiral pill, twice as huge as the entire person of the star condensed. This chakra, not good. Not to mention Hanzo. Even the wind shadow and earth shadow next to him changed drastically. They had never seen this kind of ninjutsu, but the chakra contained in this technique was enough to make any shadow-level dare not underestimate. In the beginning, it was this move that killed the vanguard troops of Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu, right? Yuna stared at the stars, thoughtful. Psychic technique, pepperfish. Facing the spiral pill shuriken, Hanzo did not dare to raise it, and he was able to channel the pepperfish at the first time. Hanzo stood on top of a huge pepperfish, surrounded by an enchantment. This is one of the strongest abilities of the pepperfish, able to stealth, drill into the soil, and avoid all attacks. You're really careful. I haven't made a move. You're scared like this? Xingchen knew that Hanzo made this move, and no matter how powerful the spiral pill shuriken was, he couldn't help him. Therefore, he fortunately dispersed the tricks and did not do meaningless consumption. It's just invincible, and you should be happy. Let me be careful here. It shows my recognition of your strength. Hanzo said, you are indeed a good opponent. Even me, I have to go all out. It's really a blessing to be praised by you. But are you really sure that if you channel the pepperfish, you will be invincible? The pepperfish is indeed special, capable of attacking and defending. But if he was really invincible, it would be impossible for Nagato and later generations to kill him. Are you trying to say that you can crack my pepperfish's defenses? It's not a test. Then come on. Hanzo spoke in a calm tone. The pepperfish is the psychic beast he relies on the most when fighting, so he is extremely confident. The stars are not nonsense, and as soon as he steps forward, the inner Yuan swells, intending to perform peerless secret techniques. However, at this moment, a wind blade broke through the air and forced into the death of the stars. The stars could not avoid it, but with a backhand wave, they actually slapped the wind blade apart with their bare hands. Heh, I really thought you could calm down, dignified, and do this kind of villain behavior. Hanzo frowned slightly, looked at the 3 generations of Wind Shadow who suddenly struck, and asked, Wind Shadow, what do you mean by this? Mr. Hanzo, I believe that by now you have also understood that Shi Xingchen's ability has far exceeded your and my estimates. To deal with this kind of enemy, it is better not to make any sense. Just kill him, Wind Shadow said, and his hands were sealed, and the shot was a masterstroke. Magnetic escape, sand iron time rain. Seeing this, Hanzo hesitated slightly, and the killing thought was abrupt. In the beginning, he really wanted to fight Xingchen alone, because he thought that he would definitely win. However, at this time, he found that he could only be undefeated at most, but he had not many chances to kill the stars. At the moment, Wind Shadow intervened and vowed to kill the stars, causing him to immediately change his original intention. Perhaps uniting the Wind Shadow and killing the stars is the truly wise choice. Sometimes, the change of mind is instantaneous. What's more, if he and Kazekage both made a move, would such a kid still stand by and watch? No matter how powerful Shi Xingchen is, in the face of the 3 shadows, he can only drink hatred.